Okay, someone can unmute and just tell me whether you are able to see my screen, see my presentation.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, okay. Good evening, all of you. Uh, and sorry for some delay. Something went wrong with my microphone. I don't know. It happened suddenly. Okay, so today is the first session we are having uh, in the SAP Skills for Finance Professional program. And this I've kept it open for uh, even non-participants to this program so that they can benefit from getting introduced to SAP, and I hope they will like this session. So uh, I'm into SAP consulting, SAP training, business valuation, and financial modeling. More you can know from my website. I'll not spend much time, rather start moving forward. So we'll look at some of the basic content. So now start quickly on what is SAP, and you must have heard about SAP is a system application product. It's a German product, and someone calls it SAP, someone call it SAP. But most important point here is that it's an off-the-shelf software. And this is one point that you have to keep in mind. SAP is not designed grounds up or written grounds up for specific company. It is off the shelf. It is just like your Microsoft PowerPoint. It will be the same Microsoft PowerPoint 360 on your desk and my desk, but yeah, it can be set up slightly differently. Uh, though it may have limited option when it comes to PowerPoint, but when it comes to SAP, it has more options to configure and customize it. Okay, and standard SAP without major changes can be implemented in a very short time. In fact, if you already have some company and you just want to roll it out, it's just few hours that you can do FICO, setup, and MMPPSD will take some more time. But that's not very complex kind of, but more complex takes some more time. But the point is that it's a off-the-shelf software, and that's what you have to keep in mind all the time you are looking at SAP. SAP by design, is very much similar to the Lego blocks, which we all have played with, in our childhood days. So with Lego toys, you can build a house or any other object of different types, different size, different colors, design. Everything can be different. And SAP, while I said that it is a off-the-shelf product, it can still be configured differently for different organization. Remember one thing, that when we say ECC6 or S4 HANA, it is the same product that is used across the world by all the companies. It is just that every company will configure or customize it according to their requirement. The building blocks of SAP, the Lego kind of blocks, are the enterprise structure, configuration, master data, transactions, modules, business processes. Most important, besides that, there are a few more things like validation, substitution. There's an ABAP customizations, and there can be interfaces, and all. And some of this may be there, but these are the most important. And when you have to learn SAP, just think big. Think of bigger organizations. Think of bigger problems. Companies that operate with different currencies, in different regions of the world, with different regulations, and you can then appreciate SAP much better. HANA, it's a game changer. What is the difference between HANA and non-HANA? It is very similar to if you were using a hard disk laptop and you now switch over to a SSD, solid state drive laptop. You will see a remarkable difference between the two. And that's exactly the difference between HANA and the non-HANA boxes. So in HANA, you have blade server, and you use the capability of the RAM to store and to retrieve data much faster compared to hard disk. The spinning hard disk has a limitation of uh, 5,400 to 7,500 RPM on our laptop. On the most efficient server, it is like 12,000 to 15,000 RPM. So that's the maximum speed at which you can retrieve the data. And similarly, the database is columnar and rows and column both in HANA, whereas in the RDBMS it is always rows and columns. When you have to retrieve the data, it takes longer time in a rows and column versus a columnar database. The better processor uh, in HANA. Now all this is resulting into big change. One is that the difference between OLAP and OLTP is going away, which means that you will have the same system as your transaction processing and also reporting. You won't need to have a business warehouse separate. Most of it can be done because now it can operate at a much faster speed. Data model is changing. Earlier, the data model was dependent on the spinning hard disk, but now the data model can take or leverage the abilities of RAM. So the second, third thing that I want to tell you about is the client, and this is very mysterious thing, and you will hear different versions of what does a client mean. Sometimes you will hear that client is inside the instance, sometimes instance is within the client. But client is a customer in SAP, and each customer maps to one client. Within one SAP instance, a number of clients can be created, and there are times when this can be different in different companies. So don't take it for granted. And as I take you into SAP, I will show you client in a better way. But client will help you to establish the landscape. So you will have a development box separate from the quality, and that will be separate from the production, and that makes SAP, 99.99% up and running, because no program can be directly changed in production system. Okay, so all the bugs, they are detected before it moves to the production system, and which is where the client plays a big role. And we'll look at more detail. And this, the landscape I'm talking about, you have a development server, you have a quality server, you have a production server. Those who are working in SAP environment, they would have heard about this. You may be calling it a development client, or you might also be having something called a golden client, where you will keep all your master data intact. So this landscape also differs from company to company. When you are working in a company, or you are going to a company as a professional, like a cost accountant or a chartered accountant, you can find out who is the basis consultant in this company. And that basis consultant, you can sit down and ask him, can you help me understand the landscape? And he will help you understand the landscape. So don't feel too confused about all this. You have to just find out the right person in the organization, and the right person is either maybe called as an administrator, but in SAP language it is called the basis. So you can sit down with him and understand the landscape, and that will be very quick. Maybe in just 15 minutes you will be able to understand the landscape, the client and instance, and everything in that company's SAP environment. It is a three-tier kind of a technology. You all know what is three-tier. We have seen the railway bogie, which has a three-tier compartment. So the lower tier is closest to you, and that is called GUI, yeah, graphic user interface. It is also called a thin client. So basically, it's very thin, does not occupy much space, and it does not require a very high-performing laptop or a device. When you click on it, it will connect you to an application server. An application server connects to a database server. So what does it help? It's actually very technical, but it does help in the way a larger organ. It will help in a larger setup if you have a three-tier, because then the performance of the system will be much better. Application server will store various application rules. The database server will have only the data, and when you execute, you are going through GUI, and you are in the application server, and at the back end, system is automatically either writing on the database server or retrieving the data from the server. So with this, just a quick recap of SAP. Just brought in very few but very important point that you will keep in mind while you are getting into SAP environment. And so I will get into SAP. So this is what you see on the screen. This is called graphical user interface, SAP login pad. And this is where I have configured few servers, and there's a address to that server and the instance. Okay, and I'll just log in. And the first information that it gives me is that it's a client 800. Okay, so that's where I talked about client. So this is called a client. So you are getting into a client now. That number is 800, and it is called IDES client. So IDES is a SAP training setup where SAP has provided a lot of data, so you can learn. So I'll enter my user ID, and so SAP has several languages that it supports: Korean or Hebrew, or Chinese, German, French. A lot of languages it can support. So now I'm here in this SAP screen, very simple looking, nicely laid out screen. At the bottom, if you see, it will say client 800. So I'm in this client. User is EH8AM04. This is the program that I'm on. So it will give you data about the screen that you are in. So I can change this to transaction. Okay, and so every time I execute a transaction, I can see it here. Okay, and so there are some nice options here. Those who like to play with color and theme, they can try it. You can select any of this theme. There are, I think, color as well.
स्क्रीनशॉट अरे यार भगा रहा है बार बार मैम आपका ये भी आ रहा है नहीं वो आएगा आएगा
Okay. Sorry for this interruption. So, yeah, you can, whenever your time, you can go through this. There are some of the design element here. So you can design the way SAP looks. When you go to any company, the SAP look will be different than what I am showing you on the screen. So don't start thinking that the SAP, what I am showing you, is very different than the SAP they have. But the way you have to understand SAP is that whether it is a ECC 6 or S4 HANA, or whether it is the earlier one, the R3 versions. And within that, you can figure out whether it is a enhancement pack. So if it is a ECC, then what it is. And if it is S4 HANA, then what kind of package it has. So if you come to system and you get into this, it will tell you the operating system that the system is in, the database is MS SQL, okay, and something on the installation license. And when you click on it, now it says what are the software component it has installed and various product versions. So here it says EHP8. So EHP is enhancement pack 8 for SAP ERP 6. So that's what is my system that I am right now showing you. So it's not S4 HANA, it's not R3, it's not ECC EHP7, it is ECC ERP EHP 8. Okay, and so this is something on the navigation. If you click on this, it can open up another session. So I'm doing an alt tab, and you see it's a different session. Okay, and this will open. There's a small help here that you can take help. So this is about the navigation. Yeah, this is a small window, and it is used for transaction codes. Okay, so what is transaction code? To understand that, let's understand first the left-hand side screen. So if you see accounting, I can expand or collapse this tree. And if I expand the financial accounting further, then it has general ledger, accounts payable, banks, fixed assets, the one that we commonly use. If you go into general ledger, then there's a document entry. Now here comes the transaction code. So after going down, several levels, you get to the real transaction that you want to work on. The other way is that if you remember that this is FB50, so it will come to this screen. If I put FB50 here, then it also brings me the same screen. So basically, this window is a shortcut for you to access any transaction. When you start working on SAP, in just some time, you will have many of this transaction code that you frequently use by heart. Or if you want, you can also save them as a favorite. For example, if you are using this very often, you can just add it to the favorite, and I have it now in my favorite, and I can get into this screen from here. Okay, so this is the navigation. We can go into accounting, or if you want to get into controlling, you can expand it, and you can go into the controlling, and you can go into the master data, or you can use the transaction code. Either of it you can do. Now, when you do it, in this screen, you will see this is now changed to FB50 because this is the FB50 transaction code. And the program name for that is SAP MF05A. Okay, so every screen will have its own program name, which SAP uses at the back end. Now, this is a very neatly organized menu. So besides accounting, you also have logistics and human resources. These are the three very important modules. So within logistics, you will have material management, sales and distribution, production. So everything except accounting and human resources falls under this. So what we will do is we will get into financial accounting, and we'll see. We'll enter one accounting entry. And when I make an entry, it immediately gives me a message. This is yellow in sign. Okay, so yellow means it's warning, just like in traffic light, there's yellow, which means it's a warning. So if you click on it, right now it doesn't show, but here it is saying document date and posting date are in different fiscal years. So SAP knows that the fiscal year of posting date and the document date is different. Document date is the date which is written on the invoice. So but then it is giving me a warning sign, so it will allow me to go further. Here I can check which company code I am posting to. So the rules which are defined. So I was talking about in the 3-tier architecture about the rules which are defined on the application layer. And these are the rules which are defined, which you have seen where SAP is checking with the rules and either stopping me or giving me a warning or allowing me. Okay, so these are called the application rules and which are part of the application server in a 3-tier architecture. So what happens with this is that I cannot just enter anything crap in the database. SAP will check each and every I make, and it will verify whether it is the right entry to get into the database based on the rules defined. And those rules are defined in the configuration that we do. Sometimes it is in the master data as well. So it is still giving me one last error. Because I have to calculate the tax. Okay, so there is some issue going on with this server, and beyond that it is not going. So this is dump. It is given. So basically, we are not able to post the document, but we have seen the entry screen. And so what we can do perhaps is we'll see so if I come here and say /nf.01, it's a transaction code for financial statement. Okay, I've created a variant and I will use that format. So this is the financial statement. It has a balance sheet and profit and loss account. It gets prepared every time a entry is posted. It gets updated immediately. Okay, so this is the assets, with acquisition value, plant and machinery, financial assets, loans, okay, receivables. Now these are the banks. And these are the raw materials item and expenses. So I'll try to see if I can pick this up 474100 and show you to the account, because That error is not allowing me to post the document. Let me see if it allows me to display. Okay, so now we are into account which has debit and credit, and if you see the way it is organized is by period 1 to 12, and double click on it. It brings up the detail of that period, and now you can come here and see the entry. Let me see if now allows us. Yeah, okay. So this is a accounting entry where the salaries is credited. There's a input tax debit and travel expense is debited. Okay, and with a cost center. And this is what I was trying to do, but because of that error, I'm not able to complete. So this is how a GL account gets posted. You can see the account and you can also see the financial statement. This gets updated the moment a document is entered. When you have to display an account, you will have to enter the document number, account number, a company, and fiscal year. You can also want to see the document. You can see this is the FB03, the T code for the document, and you can see the document. Okay, so either you can go into the account and do a drill down into this document, or if you know the document number, you can see the document. Okay, and here if you see, you can get other details like when was the document posted, when was it posted, what is the date on the document, though it is the same here, but most of the time an invoice date and posting date will be different. Who is the person who has entered, when was it entered, time of entry, time of parking, what is the T code used. So every detail is captured by SAP, and that can be then used for analyzing accounting entry. So now one thing which I said I will show you in some detail is the client. So there is a T code called SCC4. With that, I can see all the clients here. Now in this server where I am, there are number of clients. Okay, so there may be some client, maybe it's a production client. This is the client where I am logged in right now. It is client 800. And then there are other clients as well for different purpose. But my access is only to this client. So the server has number of clients, but my access is limited to only one client. The client has a very important role to play in the entire SAP design and SAP architecture. As we learn in the training going forward, there are certain settings which are at the client level. There are certain settings which are at the company code level. The purpose of this is to have certain settings apply to all the company codes within the client. So in that case, you don't have to do that kind of setting again and again. And which is one very powerful design element that SAP has. the client level setting and the company code level setting. So this is something which you'll have to keep in mind whenever you are looking at, if you are into configuration, then whether this is at the client level or whether this is at the company code level. Okay. So yeah, this is what I had for today, and what I briefed you about. And I'll just quickly go through is what is very important for SAP. It's an off-the-shelf software, and as you have seen, this software can be easily rolled out to any company code, unless you have a very different business process which will require a lot of customization. It can be easily rolled out. The SAP Design, has the configuration. I'll just quickly show you what does that also look like. So when you go to this SPRO, this is the customization which is the place where the consultants work. It has all the different settings, where which will define, like, how will you define your fiscal year, for example, whether your fiscal year is from April to March or it is from January to December. SAP does not know what fiscal year your company follows. There are companies that follow May to April fiscal year. There are certain companies that follow August to July fiscal year. So it is something that you have to define, and that definition happens in this screen. Okay, and hence there are so many different parts, just like a Lego toy. So you can define this at the master data level, at the configuration level, and then there are transaction screens. So HANA, I already talked about, it's a game changer. The client, I've already shown you that a server may have a number of clients depending upon the company's requirement. You can have multiple clients, but you will have only one production client in which everyone will be posting the data. Maybe it is a sales order, it's a purchase order, it's a delivery, or it's a bill, it's a billing, any transaction, based on which we prepare our financial statement, gets posted into the production server or the production client. The landscape, the one that I have is a sandbox kind of thing, which is a kind of playground. Development server is slightly more serious than that, where consultants will do test. Then quality server is still more serious, because that's where the business user come and they test their programs. And then finally it goes to the production server after everything is tested. The three-tier structure, I'm sure now you will be very well conversant with. And we talked about the GUI. We navigated SAP. We tried to post a document. We displayed a document. How does it look like? We went into the account, see how the account is structured, and then the financial statement. How does it look like? Okay. So if there is any quick question that I can answer, you can unmute and you can ask a question. Okay, while you're thinking, I will just brief you about the course that we are starting from tomorrow. And there are participants even in this meeting who are attending this course. So it's a 40-hour kind of course with 65% time approximately on the controlling and 35% on the finance. And it's the focus on developing a skill that you can deploy in a short time. Now, within just this 40 minutes of discussion, we had a very quick grasp of some of the important component of SAP, and that when you go back to in a SAP environment, whether you work there or as a consultant, you can deploy it much easily. Now you know that you can sit down with a business person and understand the landscape. That will be very quick for you to do, rather than struggling. So each section organized to cover transactions, master data, business process, configuration, enterprise structure to bring out the integration capability of SAP. And we are going to work on this IDS server, which is a training system. This session will be conducted on MS Team the way we are doing. There will be a central repository for the queries, documents, everything on the OneNote. So this is the OneNote, and many of the participants have an access to this. So it's a very collaborative tool, much better than the Google Drive thing that we use. While I am writing here, others can also put their point. So it can be shared and it can be synced in real time because it is on the cloud. Okay, and course framework is financial accounting and controlling. It will cover almost all the areas that is needed in financial accounting. Um, GL, AP, AR, asset accounting, taxation. And in the controlling side, we'll have cost center accounting, internal order, standard costing, actual costing, material ledger, profit center accounting, profitability analysis. And then we'll also cover uh, configurations that are needed to set up all this and SAP tables. The schedule starting from tomorrow. Today was an introductory class, but from tomorrow onward, we'll go full-fledged into this. And everyone, I'm recommending to have a SAP Access because if you want to develop a SAP skill, then it's always good to have a hands-on practice. So since we are all trying to get it from the same vendor, we will be all in the same system. So the document that I have posted can be then seen by anyone in the group, anyone in the any of the participants. So that way, it will be a very hands-on kind of approach. Okay, so this was from my side. If you have got any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Hello.
Yes.
Daivat here. One question regarding F.01. So you have shown us the balance sheet portion of from the F.01. So
Right.
having query about that, we need to like implement or connect some connections to see the balance sheet, or it is a standard function from the SAP, like when we create a GL from SPRO
Correct.
and all the
Yes.
things. So it will be shown as a when we create any GL, so we have to put it as a P&L or balance sheet or something, all the things.
Yes.
So it will become automatically in F.01 as a balance sheet, or we need to make some more changes to see the balance sheet of the company.
You're absolutely right. You have to actually design it. SAP has got something called financial statement version, FSV. So in FSV, what you will do is you will organize your account in a way you want to see. If you look at this FSV, it has been designed in that way. So you have grouped accounts into other wages and salary costs. So that is a header, and then there are these accounts. Okay, so that way SAP gets a definition that this is how you want it to be presented, and then when you run this program, it will bring those item and also the amount. Okay, so it is called FSV, and if you come here, when I executed this program, there is a financial statement version called INT. So INT is then defined in customization in one of this part. Let me. So this is a very quick way of getting into configuration. So going, just hit a find. So here you have to define your financial statement version. I was in INT. So, sorry, what happened? So now you see assets, liabilities, profit and loss statement, financial results. So this is at a very high level. Okay, when you expand this, you have subscription to capital. This is all done by done the way you want to define. Don't think that whatever I'm showing you is the only way you can do it. You can do it the way you want. But I'm just showing you that within the INT, how it has been designed or defined. So there's something called subscription to capital stock, formation expenses, fixed assets, current assets. Okay, so with that all comes under asset. And then when you expand the fixed asset, then there's the intangible asset, tangible asset, and financial assets. And if you expand the intangible assets further, you keep on expanding, you see. So the acquisition value, the account range has been given. So the account which are falling in this range, will get clubbed into acquisition value. And similarly, the accumulated depreciation will get, and that will all be rolled up to intangible assets. Sorry, how it has been rolled up? Yeah, so this gets rolled up here. Together will get rolled up here. So you will be able to see the values at different level. Okay, I hope this is clear. It can be customized the way you want.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, it's a good question. Because the reason why SAP has given this is that every company will have different way they define the account. The account number is different, the nomenclature is different, the nature of the account is different, the way they want to group the accounts is different. So it is very flexible. Once you define your chart of account and your GL accounts, you create it, you will be able to create this FSP. So any other question, I'll be glad to answer, whether it is on the training that we are going to do from tomorrow, if you want to have any question, or on SAP.
In the course, we will learn the configuration also.
Your voice is not clear. Was it Charudatta?
In SAP, we will learn configuration also.
Yes, in this training program, we will also, just like file statement version we talked about. I showed you the file statement, but it was only in response to the question that I showed the configuration. However, it is part of the training that I'll also train on the configuration. So from transaction data to master data configuration, and also SAP tables. I'll show you quickly, so the document that we post actually goes to the database, and there's transaction called SC16. So there are different tables that I can use. I'll say here company code 1000. Okay, and I want fiscal year 2020 just to check. And this is number of entries. If I click on it, it will tell me that there are only 322 entries that have been posted in this year. But if I say make it 2012, sorry, one second. It is 5,348. The document that we saw gets posted here. This is the kind of row and column kind of database that it gets posted to. And during the training, we are going to dwell more detail into it on how can we get more value out of this kind of table. How can we, even have some reporting from there, or how can we have better understanding of the system using tables? Because there are many times reports are not available for many areas, especially if you have to analyze, transactions along with configurations, then it is not available. So we make use of the tables. Okay, so here if you see there are T codes also given. So this table is a header level table. The transaction level table is different. It is called BSEG. So in ECC, we have got these two very important table for FI, BKPF and BSEG, which we often use. So that is another thing which will be done in the training. So for each and every transaction, whether it's a production transaction, sales transaction, metals transaction, there are different tables, and you can actually leverage those tables to understand the system better and also analyze the data in a much better way.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Amit. Sir, can you just once again explain the difference between ECC6 and HANA? Is the difference only for the server in this way?
Okay. See, first is it is always ECC6 and S4 HANA. HANA and S4 HANA are slightly different. Let me first help you understand that part. Then I'll come to ECC6 and HANA. So HANA is a so now you can be on mute. Okay. So HANA is analytical box. So where there is a capability of processing data on RAM instead of hard disk, and it also has a blade server. Besides that, the database can be columnar, so data can be retrieved faster, and the processors are much better. So that's the HANA box. Now HANA box is an appliance, so it's like a database that can be used with any application. So you can have even the ECC and replace your Oracle database and have HANA below it. Okay, so that is possible. What happened is, this is like 2007 or 8 when SAP started investing in HANA. It started with HANA appliance first, and then started developing application on top of the HANA device. So we had like COPA accelerator coming up, then APO, and then there was Simple Finance and those applications coming up. Finally, SAP came up with S4 HANA, which is an ERP on HANA. Okay, so HANA and S4 HANA are different from that perspective. S4 HANA is an ERP which sits on HANA database and or HANA appliance. Now ECC 6 and S4 HANA. Okay, so ECC 6 sits on the database which records everything in a hard disk. So hard disk rotates just like you must have seen in your laptop. Hard disk is rotating, and that is a constant when you have to retrieve the data. When you have to write the data, it is still fine, but retrieving the data is limited by the speed at which the disk rotates, and the maximum speed at which the best of the servers disk rotate is 15,000 RPM. So which means that the programs that can be written, the tables that can be designed, the way system can be architected is all constrained by that. So I'll give you an example. If you in ECC 6, we have got several finance tables, and for materials also there are like dozens of tables. But in S4 HANA, the design is very simple. In S4 HANA, there's only one table for finance, and which will also have material data in it, and all other data coming into that is called AC Doka A table. So whereas in ECC6 there are a lot of tables because the hard disk is a constant, so you have to split the data into multiple tables. Whereas in S4 HANA, you don't have to split tables. Even large size table can be accommodated in the architecture or the blade server and the RAM. So which is why the design is different. So S4 HANA is able to have many applications. For example, big data or Internet of Things kind of data, which requires tremendous power to process the data, which can be done much better in S4 HANA compared to ECC 6. The reporting in S4 HANA is real time, whereas the reporting in ECC 6 is constant because you will have to move your data into a business warehouse to do reporting. If you run larger reports in ECC 6, it will slow down the business transactions, which no one actually can afford. So these are the constraints of ECC 6 compared to S4 HANA. From business functionality perspective, SAP has come up with a lot of new features, whether it is the planning and consolidation or whether it's the Fiori apps. And in the S4 HANA, ECC 6 will soon die out. It's just a matter of time. I think earlier the timeline was 2025, but because of the pandemic, they have, I think, moved it to 2028. Okay, so after that, ECC 6 will go away and everything will be S4 HANA. I hope I have made it clear.
Yes, sir. Sir, are you going to send every session's presentation?
No, so this presentation session will be on my website. So on my website, there's a file share. I've already uploaded this file. Okay. Now the subsequent session, will not be an open class. So I'll be putting it into this OneNote, and from there, all the participants, will be able to access this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
There's one query regarding the ECC 6 and S4 HANA. As you mentioned, there is a redesigning of the tables, like they have consulted the table and all. So while we migrate from ECC 6 to S4 HANA, so will it impact our Z reports, Z programming, and other configuration like CO configurations over there, like the cycles and all? So will it impact these things?
Yes, it does. Because S4 HANA by design is very different. For example, in ECC 6, new ledger was optional, whereas in S4 HANA, it is there by design. Similarly, metal ledger was optional, whereas here, metal ledger is available. So there's a lot of those design things. And anyways, when as far as the Z things are concerned, which are customized, it is always a challenge, because even within ECC6, if there is an upgrade happening, your basis team will have to be very careful. Otherwise, the upgrade will overwrite your Z. I'm not saying that all customizations are overwritten, but there are certain specific customizations which get overwritten if the basis team doesn't take care while doing an upgrade. Okay, so Z is always difficult to maintain and manage. If you have to move from ECC6 to S4HANA, it is like almost a new implementation you're doing.
Okay.
Of course, SAP has tools by which you can migrate the data. That part is there. Your data will not be lost, but to what extent your Z programs can be sustained is very doubtful, because the same programs in the same way will not be available in S4HANA. This is a good question. It is a migration related challenge, and there are a lot of migration tools that S4HANA provides for migrating from ECC6 to S4HANA, especially if you are not using new GL, then you will have to prepare data in a different way, because for different reportings, you might be using the same set of ledger, whereas in the new ledger concept, you can maintain books of account by different regulations. So you can have one book of account for Companies Act, second for say US GAAP, and third for IFRS, and fourth for say income tax. Any further question? So good questions. Thanks a lot, guys, for your time. The presentation is available on my site. You can download it if you would like to. And I will also upload this in just next few days on my website. So you can see this from the video section. So these are the video section where I've already uploaded some of the recorded webinars, and I will also put this in few days time once I have edited some of the portions. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great evening, and to the participants, see you tomorrow. Bye. Good night.
Yeah, bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night, sir.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you very
Bye,
much.
all of you.
Bye.
Hello. Bye.
Good night.
Hello. Can we conduct a session on Zoom?
So is this there a challenge with MS Teams?
I don't know, but Zoom was, I think it is a little bit friendly, and I was not able to open on my laptop today, Team, though it is already installed. I don't know. This may be my issue end.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll try for because I have done several dozens of webinars on this, and it has worked well. So we'll see if others are also facing problem. I will move to Zoom. Let us try for 1 or 2 more days and see. Let's see tomorrow how it works. If you have any challenge, then we'll fix it. Okay.
And if we email to that person who is going to provide that online access,
yes.
So if it now, so for tomorrow's lecture, it will be available.
Yeah, you email to them whether they are providing access now or after the payment, it depends. If they are providing it now, then you will get all the links to download GUI and also the server address and everything along with your user ID and password. So you can write to them and maybe they'll provide you. You can just write to them that I got a training. Can you please provide this and send me the invoice and I'll make the payment. So they usually provide it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And they are also on Skype, so you can also connect with them on Skype. I'm often connected with them on Skype. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks all of you. Good night.